Thank you, Inya and Eva, for inviting me to this wonderful and giving this wonderful opportunity to talk about this project. So I'm going to talk about my participation in an archival project at an annual international summer music festival in Galicia, in Spain, organized by the arts organization Cinsal Audio, where since 2018 I've been invited to make acoustic cylinder recordings of artists from diverse countries appearing at the festival, some of whom perform traditional music or make new music using traditional instruments and folk influences. Now, because the conditions of recording are so very similar to what an ethnographer in the early 20th century may have encountered, certainly on a technical level, I will posit that in making these recordings, I am reenacting some past practices of early field ethnography. Now, a lot of this dates back to phonographies, and that's a screenshot with pages from phonographies, which was my archive of phonographic recordings of contemporary musicians, writers, and artists made exclusively on wax cylinders, which were digitized and made available online. And this archive was actually an offshoot of my creative practice as a composer using the phonograph and other early sound technologies and making self-made recordings in performances and experimental music making. I didn't record any traditional music at all this time. There was none represented in the phonography's archive. But the phonography's archive did serve as a model for the Cinsal Audio archive of special sessions, which we'll look at later, that was to follow in 2018. All right. Now, through the interest in the phonography's project, I was invited to Galicia in 2009 as part of a performance and workshop tour of the region. And I made a cylinder recording in Santiago de Compostela. They used the opportunity of my visit to commemorate what they thought was the very first recording of Galician traditional music in 1904. However, I've since read that there were recordings of Galician music as early as 1895, if not before, but I have to defer to Eva for this question. This modern cylinder recording was made by two local musicians, and the project was conceived also by Julio Gomez, the co-director of Cinsal Audio, who I'll mention again later. This was actually, I'm showing this because this was the very first traditional music I ever recorded, and it's on YouTube. I'm just going to play, I won't play the cylinder recording, I'll just play an introduction to this. Sorry to cut it off there. It continues, and then they play the cylinder recording and reproduction rather, and there's whooping and wild applause and stuff. Some years later, again in Spain, and to my next traditional music recording, this has nothing to do with Cinsal or Galicia, but this recording I wanted to play is from the north of Extremadura, from Las Urdes region. It's actually the same region that Luis Buñuel depicted in his film from 1933, Tierra sin pan, which is a land without bread. It's a sort of pseudo-ethnographic documentary which depicted extreme poverty. My understanding at the time was that there had been no recordings of the music of this region by ethnographers until Alan Lomax's 1952 recordings made in Extremadura. But again, I have to defer to Eva for verification of that question. The musicians actually came from quite a long distance to record, and also in full costume, and I'll play a short extract of one of the recordings. Now to the Isla de San Simón, the San Simón Island. The location of this is the location of the Sin Sol Son festival. The island is in the Vigo estuary in the municipality of Redondela in Galicia. It's actually two islands connected together by a stone bridge. It had been used in the past by monastic orders, and it also as a place of quarantine for visiting ships. And during and after the Civil War, it was used as a concentration camp for political prisoners opposed to Franco and fascism, and Republican prisoners of war, and where very many died from disease and summary execution. And this is actually commemorated on the island, which has now become a peaceful haven and hosts a museum and also educational and arts events. The Sin Sol Audio have mounted a festival on the island every July since 1910, with the exception of 20 and 21, which were due to the COVID pandemic. And it has become a much loved and critically acclaimed small indie music festival in Spain. It's a logistical feat actually to transport and mount the festival on the island. All the equipment and resources have to be brought in by small boats from the mainland, and then it has to be struck down and taken back again. It's a 3-day festival with a very eclectic program featuring musicians from all parts of the world and presented on 3 stages around the island. And the audience of around 900, that's the maximum that they're permitted to have on the island, arrive and depart every day, morning and evening by ferry. One of the features of this festival is that the program is kept a close secret until the audience arrive on the island by boat. Nevertheless, the tickets are sold out within about 24 hours of them going on sale, which is usually in April. So it's a big competition for tickets. Pictured is Julio Gomez, who's the co-director, together with Luis Campos. Julio also mounts workshops and temporary exhibitions during the festival on the theme of past recording and reproduction technologies. And this extends to the Special Sessions project, where performing artists from the festival are invited to record a cylinder for the Sin Sol phonograph archive, is where I come in. And this, if on the website, that contains a link for the Special Sessions pages where you can hear dozens of recordings of cylinder recordings. It's all grayed out here, but once you put the cursor on it, the image illuminates. Each of the there are videos that accompany each recording, which show their making, and also underneath there's a link to the artist's own Instagram or website, and there's also the video shows the playback as it was played back to the musicians. Underneath is a digital transcription that's made subsequently. And it gives information about the location on the island as well. It's very well documented. At the moment, there's currently only about 24 of the more than 60 recordings made during the course of 3 festivals, but there will be more made available in due course. Among the recordings are many of traditional music or of musicians who play traditional instruments. For instance, this South Korean band, ADG7, mix traditional Korean music with K-pop, and it's quite an exciting band. They're very funny, and their costumes and their instruments. They're very, very skilled musicians as well. Now I'm going to play extracts from 3 recordings of one featuring Kaito from solo, who sings a solo, Cosmo Sheldrake from London, and Ara, Queen of Drums from Nigeria. They just made a little medley here.
When no farewell, dear, no farewell, dear, it
Now, the recordings are played back to the artists directly after the recording and to the audience present. And most have never seen a phonograph in real life or heard a cylinder recording, let alone make one. And their reactions are really effusive. There's a curiosity and interest and enthusiasm that's very infectious. And one of them, actually one of the main reasons I keep on doing this, one could make a comparison with the early responses to the phonograph, I would argue, to hearing a recorded sound reproduction for the first time. I mean, of course, it's not the same, but in hearing an acoustic recording being reproduced for the first time, there are still feelings of wonder and delight, especially from younger people who have younger generation who've grown up with digital media. Now, I'm going to make some comparisons with historical ethnographic recordings with the Syncell Special Sessions Project. Firstly, I made this chart here. I mean, in terms of the subject or recordee, it's very much the same. It's somebody's invited to perform, to contribute to an archive. It's not part of a performance. The phonographer, again, I'm not a professional sound recordist. I may be semi-trained, and I've gained experience through doing, but more of a sound historian, a sound researcher. So similar to an ethnographer in the sense that both activities are basically studies. The location, again, all of these recordings are made in the field, and where the research activity takes place, and not in a recording studio. Again, the recording technology is very similar as used by the ethnographers in the early 20th century. So I'm using domestic models of Edison of phonograph, standard types of recording equipment, horns and recorders. And then the documentation, the Syncell archives, the musicians performing in the festival using this archaic form of sound archiving. But it's also with contemporary digital means used alongside to document the process and to record the event. So there's an archive, and the physical recording media, the recorded cylinders, is preserved, including tests and experiments. And there's the cylinders are digitized and to preserve the recordings and to make them accessible to prospective listeners. Now, of course, there are key differences, and the main ones are that there is no study or analysis through text or commentaries, and there's no transcription or notation of the music. The aims are very different. This is an artistic archival project, and also I'm not an ethnographer. I don't pretend to be an ethnographer, but I'm more of a researcher of early sound recording and reproduction practices. To continue with this idea of, this shows an early picture of Schünemann and Stumpf recording. It's obviously a portrait, and here they have I think they're using a graphophone, Columbia graphophone, much the same as the same model actually. I think as we saw in George Kenaway's presentation used by Marjorie Kennedy Fraser. There's an Excelsior phonograph and perhaps one of the so-called cheap and unreliable German phonographs, as was described by Lily Fraser in Simon Hayes' talk. And this machine is in the Media Archaeological Fundus in Humboldt University in Berlin. I don't know if that was ever used that model was ever used for ethnographic recording. Here is one of the locations I had to record in was a horrible place to record, close to the water, windy. Had to record right in the corner. The organisers put me there basically so that they could fit in a large audience, and because they wanted to record in different parts of the island. So that was one of the most problematic places. But I managed still to capture something in this place. But it was a challenging environment. The project was extremely well documented. As you can see, I had a videographer, a sound recordist who would record digitally and also the playbacks to the musicians, and a photographer on occasion. Sometimes we would even have a 360-degree camera capturing the sessions as well. And the cylinders were played back to the artist directly after recording, but then there was a subsequent digital recording made separately through a mechanical playback. And all of the technical information was documented in a spreadsheet too, with some comments on the recording. Now, I'm going to, you could argue that this is as being a kind of a media archaeological experiment. Now, what do I mean by experimental media archaeology? Now, this is a term that was based on the theory and methodology proposed by the media historian Andreas Fickers and the film scholar Annie van der Oever, and developed in practice by the amateur film researcher Tim van der Heijden and myself at the University of Luxembourg in a postdoctoral project called Doing Experimental Media Archaeology. In a nutshell, it's a practice-based sensorial approach to media historiography, and it's about exploring past media technologies and their histories of use by means of hands-on experiments and performing historically informed reenactments. It's very much the same as what Inyo is doing in her musicological research. This draws on the notion of the historical reenactment proposed by R.G. Collingwood in his book, The Idea of History. And the idea is that doing carefully defined experiments and reenactments with historical media technologies will lead to new historical, ethnographic, and empirical knowledge about past user practices and the media objects themselves. So it's about sensing the past and revealing tacit, embodied, and experimental knowledge of past practices. Now, to close, I'm going to play a video. It's a couple of minutes long. It's a video from the Sinsal website, and it's of a South Korean duo, Dalum, who played traditional Korean instruments. Now, we had to record them on stage just after the performance because of difficulties of transporting and setting up their instruments. And this was also one of the most difficult recordings I've ever had to make. But after a test recording and repositioning of instruments and the horn, and getting the musicians to play in a very forceful manner, we managed to get quite a satisfactory result. And this is an example of the type of documentation that we're doing in Sinsal. Okay. Well, there's something there, and it's very, very soft. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's the nature of these brown wax recordings. I'm wondering what we can do to improve this. Maybe I need to move the horn sometimes just moving it and very little can make a huge difference. Mm-hmm. Or maybe even moving it closer. Okay.
그런 건가 봐. 그런 건가 봐.
So that's it, man. Thank you. Thanks.